Welcome to Technologies Now, the Business Edge. I'm David Erbach, and today we're exploring how technology is reshaping commercial real estate. My guest is Lilian Chen, founder and CEO of Proptimal, a proptech platform empowering real estate professionals with institutional level analysis and insights. Lilian's background spans Berkeley economics, Oxford MBA, and institutional real estate finance, and now she's a startup leader with cutting edge automation. So Lilian, let's start with your story. How did you get started? What led you up to this point in time? Go back as far as you want or start yesterday.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, David. I'm excited to be here and excited to share everything I know about technology and real estate with your audience. So, to get started, I think when I first started in real estate, I started as a financial analyst. And Proptimal now is essentially building the 10x real estate analyst that automates a lot of what I do. And how we got here was that when I started the business, it was a fractional real estate service. And for the first 2 years, we didn't do any marketing at all, right? No website, no CRM, nothing.
Wow.
And just how crazy, just thinking about it. And the reason was we didn't have to. And we were constantly booked out to a point where I figured, okay, all of these real estate developers that are across the United States, many of them don't have a finance background and many of them don't have real estate analysts in-house, right? So if you think about
Right.
the typical developer, a lot of times it's just, 3 to 5 people running $100 million of portfolio. And when it comes to numbers, they just guess, right? And nobody wants to admit it, but a lot of people have no idea what they're doing when it comes to financial modeling. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, right? So when you think about it, these people are relying on external contractors that maybe they find on Upwork or Fiverr or someone's intern or, just someone, right? Someone outside that they have no control over to run arguably one of the most important functions of their business. And so that's why Proptimal was doing well as a service company, was because if you do a good job, then it's actually, you're in high demand. And I realized why when I started expanding the business into an agency, when I started hiring my own people. And the reason was because finding a good analyst is really, really hard. And you need to be able to have the skills to train that analyst as well. And if I can't do it and I'm doing it full time, how is the average real estate company going to do it? So naturally, the only solution after all these years is we need to create a tech solution that allows us to be able to serve more people while keeping the cost still reasonable for the everyday developer.
Interesting. So let's do this. Let's take a step back. I want to get some more background. This is very interesting and where you're going. But you grew up in Taiwan. If I have my facts all straight here, you moved to the US when you were 12. Then you went to studied economics in the University of UC Berkeley. So what are some of the formative early experiences, cultural, educational, personal, that shaped your mindset to lead to your career and then to Proptimal?
That's a really good question. I think it's a lot of different things building up into what I am today, right? So I've traveled to more than 40 countries and as a lot of times solo, as a digital nomad, working remotely, working on my laptop. And I've lived across 3 continents, across a couple of cities abroad as well. So every place that I was in kind of installed a little bit of part of me, right? So I think growing up from Asia was really interesting because we Asians are very direct, I think, when it comes to receiving feedback and finding very practical solutions. So you can see that Proptimal, we take a very practical approach to solving problems. And a lot of times that's what agents do is we find just if you can do something for less money and less sophistication, then build something that is simple instead of going for the fanciest tech and the latest tech, right? So We also think about ecosystem business. So we think about how is this solution going to play with other features and other functions of the business, right? So that's a very Asian way of thinking. And then I moved to California, which then a lot of time I spent in the Bay Area. So then I was able to see what startup people think like. What are the
Hmm.
people in startup? What do they think like? What do they do? How do they think that somehow they can all change the world? I don't know. So you have a very specific way of thinking in Silicon Valley. And then I moved to Europe and then I realized, oh, it's pretty much the opposite of Silicon
Right.
Valley, where people are a lot more balanced, right? They're more cautious, yes, but they're also more, I think, realistic about. You, come on, you're not all going to change the world. Just if you have something that works, then it's good enough, and you also have to manage your risk and all that stuff. So, I think why Proptimal is what it is today had a lot to do with just my exposure to a variety of different cultures. And that has allowed me to understand my audience a lot better as well. Because when I first came to America, I was the outcast and I didn't know, Jonas Brothers. I didn't know
All
these
the
things.
important things. You didn't know the important things. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know the important things. I didn't know, all the songs that people were listening to, all the movies that people were watching. And so I have to really listen to people and try to figure out how they think, what is cool, what is not. So I think that has really helped me understand my customers really, really well.
Well, that's a great perspective that most people don't have. You have the balance of the cultures of the world in your experience, and most people are very certainly egocentric, but you know, because that's their perspective, not because they mean to be that way, right?
Yeah.
But so that's got to help tremendously in communication. As soon as you can understand, the type of person you're talking to and what they're trying to, work through. Are they being pragmatic? Are they, trying to make this fancy? What are they trying to do? That is interesting. So another side personal note, what's been your favorite place that you've lived?
London.
London, really? Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair, I just moved to New York about a month ago. So maybe New York is going to change my mind. We don't know yet. But so far, I think it's been London. It's just, well, there's a lot of buildings. So being in real estate, I think a lot of people in real estate really like being surrounded by buildings. And you know what
Yes.
it really feels like is in London, you have people who are coming from the entire world, right? And you can go anywhere at any time, and anything within central London is within half an hour. So it really feels like you're at the center of the universe and you can do whatever you want and be whatever you want. And I know New York also has that as well. So maybe I'll get the same feeling in New York.
Yes, I was going to say I think everyone from the Big Apple would say that is the center of the world,
Yeah,
and you have it wrong. It's not London; it is most definitely New York City, but you can judge that for yourself. So,
absolutely.
you've had your career in institutional real estate finance. What was your aha moment where you decided there was this gap or this opportunity that you decided to create this?
Yeah. So when I first started consulting, I was 24 years old, right? I had 2 years of work experience as a analyst for institutional real estate, and all of a sudden, when I was self-employed, I realized there was no associate to check my work anymore, and what I say goes. And suddenly, I found myself being 24 years old, advising these clients who are decades more experienced than me, much wealthier and much more successful than me. And suddenly I was the expert and I was responsible for the decisions that they're making. And I have to get every model right. And what I also realized that made things even more stressful was a lot of times they had no idea how the financials work in their specific deal. So, for example, they don't understand what are the different levers that could impact their IRR, why sometimes it just shows up on paper, but in reality, it doesn't make that much of a difference. They don't understand leverage, they don't understand how to balance risk and rewards. And then I realized I was 24 years old and I'm in charge of their multi-million dollar decision now. So that was stressful, but at the same time I realized then who's helping these people?
Yeah, no, that. That makes perfect sense because just because they're putting good deals together doesn't mean they understand exactly how they're doing it. They understand, some of these developments, some investments you could put together on the back of a napkin. If it's a good enough investment, you get in the right price at the right time, you can still make money, but it doesn't mean you know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
So you
And what I
basically
feel
just
like, right? Like they're so much smarter than me, right? So that's the thing is they're so much smarter than me. They get things done. It's just that it's not worth their time to be going through financial modeling 101 all over again.
I would argue they're not smarter than you. They have a different skill set than you do. And they need your skill set to put it all together correctly and know why they're investing or what their actual return on investment is. And like the levers you're talking about, how, leverage makes a difference on their return and these sorts of things. They need this information. Without it, they can't make good decisions. Maybe they're good decision makers and good deal makers, but without the data and knowing what the data means, you can only make so good of a decision if you don't have all the information. I mean, is that true? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on.
Okay. Um, awesome. So Proptimal is described as a 10 times real estate analyst. So talk to me about that. What does that mean to people?
Yeah. So interestingly, the 10x analyst seems to just be something that people understand the most intuitively. And so the goal is this, right? I want it to be 10 times cheaper than if you were to hire a part-time analyst to run your deals. I want it to be 10 times faster. So let's say if you, at least 10 times, actually, we have exceeded that. So traditionally, it would cost what 10-40 hours to build a financial model that is customized for a specific deal. I want to get it done in minutes, right? And we have been able to do that. And then also 10 times fewer errors, because with any financial model that is built by humans, there's always going to be mistakes. So because that we're building now with computers, you can really eliminate that human error.
So then how do you make sure the input is correct? Because obviously, as they say, garbage in, garbage out. So how do you eliminate the errors on the front end?
That's a really good question. I think most people misunderstand what the purpose of financial modeling is, right? It's not about solving for accuracy, because in reality nobody can predict what the deal is going to look like. Of course you can do these mental gymnastics and try to get to, oh, I think the assumption is going to be this, but then somebody else equally as experienced is going to come and say, well, I think it's going to be that. So that's not what we're trying to solve here. In reality, I have seen very experienced developers actively make their models less accurate so that they can underpromise and overdeliver. So their financial modeling, at least in the acquisition phase, is just a communication tool. And then it's only until we get into the construction, the asset management, where your data is backed by real performance.
That is interesting. And that makes perfect sense to me based on their strategy and what they're going to provide. As long as it's not, erroneous or, false information, then
Yeah.
that's up to them on how they're trying to pitch it and, be conservative or otherwise, I suppose. That is interesting. So for your target market, who are you best serving?
So we're serving the everyday real estate company. And what that means is we are currently not targeting directly the institutional giants. And our vision has always to be, how can we take these resources and tools and templates that large companies have access to and spread it at an affordable rate to the everyday real estate company that may or may not have an analyst, and they want to keep control in house instead of finding people who are outside that they don't really have control over.
Right. That makes sense. And then in creating this model,
Mhm.
what have you seen? Have you had to adjust this quite a bit, or you use the same models you do from an institutional,
Yeah.
setting, and you just took those and made those your own and made them affordable and pushed them out to the market, or did you just had to come by some creative approach to making this all happen?
Yeah, so are you asking about like what our model looks like and how it got developed over time?
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's basically it. I mean, does it really look like the institutional model, and you just simplified it and made it accessible because you pared it down to what was necessary? Maybe eliminate some of the bells and whistles that aren't necessary in making decisions.
Yeah. So this is actually a really hard problem to solve because in real estate, you have people of all different skill levels, right? And a lot of times, these people who have different skill levels need to work together. So if you dumb something down, then the sophisticated person is going to feel like it's inadequate. And then if you make it too sophisticated, then people can't learn how to use it. So the reason that we do what we do is we believe that financial modeling should be for everyone regardless of your skill level. And
Right,
we're going to go to where people are at instead of forcing people to adapt to us. So again, that comes from my multicultural background and understanding, you need to go to people instead of trying to change them. So what we do is our software allows you to turn on or off the different features depending on what functionalities that you need. Every financial model is custom built with all the deal nuances in mind. Because what we've learned from our consulting days is that there is no single financial model template that is perfect for everyone. It just doesn't exist.
that's brilliant. In that everyone can see it from where they're at and the detail they want to see. I just may want to know my IRR in the deal because I'm making decisions based on that. And maybe I don't understand the rest of it because I have a different function. And then other folks who are in the finance space want to know everything because they know how the levers work. And this is related to that. And they want a nice dashboard to understand, with all
Mhm.
the details broken down behind it. And then the president of the company may just want to have the overview of why are we making this decision to invest into this property. That makes perfect sense. From what I've seen, the institutional models that are used out there can be really sophisticated and provide a lot of information, and you may not need half of it. And is
If
that
it works, right? If it works, and that's a really big question that I think people tend to miss is every time you make a change or an adaptation or an expansion using humans, even the best analysts, and I'm speaking from myself, right? Even the best humans make mistakes, which is why even I have to spend a lot of time double, triple checking my work. And sometimes I still have these quote unquote errors where somebody else disagrees with the way that I'm calculating something and I'm going to have to change it.
yes? Well, everything's based on assumptions and these sorts of things as well. So people are going to have different assumptions, I would think, and that's certainly going to play into it on how it's looked at. So in developing your platform that you have, is AI a component
Mhm.
to how it was developed or how it's used? What does that play into it? So that just thinking of AI, holistically, it touches a little bit of everything that people don't necessarily realize. How does
Yeah.
it touch what you do?
So AI has been a very powerful shaper in the way that we build software today, right? So first of all, our company runs a lot on AI, which allows us to do a lot with very few resources.
Hmm.
And from the consumer's perspective, here's what AI really does for real estate companies and in software, which is think of AI as a translator that speaks all the different languages in the universe. It can read PDFs, it can read spreadsheets, it can read English, French, Spanish, whatever language it is, right? So it can take all these different quote unquote unstructured data and then it can convert that into structured data that the computer can read. Because in the past, the problem that we had is we have all these different softwares that each speak a different language and they can't talk to each other. What AI has enabled for us to do is it enables all the different softwares to talk to each other and it allows humans to be able to talk to machines as well. So what that means for our software is it has allowed people to communicate to the software in a way that they find more natural. So, for example, they can type a description of what they want and they can read and parse what they mean and turn that into data instead of manually entering them. So, we're going to have that as a future feature. And then for now, we're focusing on just like getting the mechanism down of generating the financial model.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So what is your here's a thought over here into the distance. So AI is doing a lot of things to support everything that we're doing. What are the risks in using AI, and what do you see into the future with AI adoption and where it interacts with what you do in your space, or even just, I don't know, humanity, I suppose?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So let's talk about real estate specifically because I have some strong thoughts on this.
Hmm.
Um, the industry is notorious for quote unquote slow technology adoption, resistance to technology adoption, right? What I see is the opposite. The problem doesn't come from the demand. There's so much demand. Everyone is knocking on my door asking if they can get a demo of the software, asking if they can get off the wait list quicker. Everyone is excited to learn what I'm doing, and I have a lot of traffic. The problem is there's simply not that many good software out there, right? I go around and I meet other prop tech founders as well, and I check out my competitors' work, and I check out some legacy softwares and whatnot. And a lot of times, I just simply cannot justify getting the software if I were my client. So the onus needs to be on the startup and founders side to produce something that is so valuable and to make their value proposition so clear that people are willing to buy. You can't blame it on the consumer to say, well, they just don't understand it, they're not ready, they're hesitant to adopt software. Yeah, if you can show a software and a clear value proposition that makes people 20% more money overnight, you bet people are going to buy, right? It's
Yes,
not
they are.
it's not a demand problem, it's a supply problem. We need to have better software.
So if there's better software, the demand's already there.
Yeah.
When people are often thinking that in real estate they're slow to adopt new technology, and that's not really true. You're saying that the right technology is just not showing up at the right time
Yeah.
for these folks.
If you make a really good offer, people are going to buy, right? I feel like that's a lazy way for people to take on responsibility and not be self-aware about how their product is just not good enough yet. And I apply that standard to myself as well.
Interesting. So how do you talked about a wait list. How are you scaling your business, or do you have bottlenecks, and how are you addressing those to bring your product to the market?
Yeah, I mean, when you're growing, everything is a bottleneck, right? So,
True. That is true.
so yeah, that's the short answer. The long answer is I have cut out all the additional features that are not giving immediate value, right? So the we have built a couple versions of the prototype so far. I think at least three. And with each version, the software has gotten simpler and simpler and simpler. And so I think that is an important part because the thing is, if we start developing a wide range of features right now, then we're going to have to maintain it. And we lose track of what is the most important thing to us. And for us,
Mhm.
that's going to be the financial analysis and valuation and modeling features. So what we're also able to do is, also just understanding that people don't necessarily want the most sophisticated software, right? So we need to understand like what is really adding value to people. And a lot of times, I'll give you an example. A lot of
Mhm.
times, I would hop on these demo with other software companies, and they would sit down and they would show me, well, you can also do this, and you can do this, and you can. And
Yeah.
after the 20th
Killing.
feature, they've lost me, right? And I'm just, I don't care. And it all seems very impressive, but I don't understand what that does for me. And I think that's when people start losing customers.
So they're going out there trying to sell features and not
Yeah.
value.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, if you're selling features, your features better translate to how that helps, right? If you're selling
Right.
features but you're not demonstrating the value, you're just throwing more money down the drain by building more features.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You see that with, even car sales or whatever it happens to be. You have all these features and some things, this has a big giant sunroof. And you're like, I never want the sun on me, so I want this closed. I don't know, it's not even beneficial to me, right? You can totally miss the
Yeah,
mark and just start throwing things at people like this should be important to you. And it doesn't mean it's important to them. I think that's a disconnect,
yeah,
and obviously someone's paying attention to who their prospect and client is and what their actual needs are and uncovering those, or having already uncovered them, which I believe you've done with your target markets, and then you're providing actually what they need, which becomes, a very value add proposition for them, because you're not trying to go and, hey, it comes in all these different colors, and if you want to reverse the graph, you can do it this way, and we can overlay all these things to where you can't understand what's going on. It's like providing a stock market or a stock analysis, and you could put, literally, there's 100 different indicators you can drop onto a graph, and then all of a sudden you can't tell what's going on unless you know exactly what you're after. So yeah, I could see where this would be very, very valuable. Uh, so um, your customers, are they across the globe? Are they in the US? Are they in Asia, Europe? Or tell me what your target is, and maybe how are you reaching these folks, or how are they finding you?
Oh, I would love to be a global company one day, but no, for now we're just
Yes.
focused on US. Honestly, I think there's already so many companies in the US and so much potential. And how am I reaching them? It really depends. I think a lot of it comes to relationship building.
Hmm.
And what I've also realized that is an advantage that we have is we speak the language, right? And by speaking the language, it means that we are saying the right things to real estate developers in a way that they understand. And the counter example of that would be if you talk to some of the tech founders and ask them, what do you do? And they go, we use this and this, automated this with this API and that integration, blah, 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 automated workflow, something. And you just were like, whoa, whoa. I have no idea what you just said. I'm sure you're smart, but I don't understand what's in it for me. So I think for us, nailing the messaging has been a difficult journey. Not gonna lie, it's been difficult, but a very worthwhile effort.
So if you were to give advice to someone like yourself getting into a tech business now in this current environment, real estate or otherwise, what advice would you give them?
That's a really hard question because I think there are people who get into tech business and startups for a variety of different reasons. I think the most important thing is to understand why, right? And I think many people are getting into entrepreneurship or business or startup or tech or prop tech for all the wrong reasons. And I think the wrong reason are things like you think that the results of the business is going to get you some kind of happiness or fulfillment or something that you currently can't afford or some kind of outcome. And you treat the business like it's a means to an end. But the reason why I love working in this business and I'm here with you on Friday evening is because I genuinely love what I do. And I wouldn't trade this for other things, even though that this job has been very difficult, obviously. I enjoy the journey. I enjoy the customers I serve. I really enjoy getting to know them, helping them, and seeing the things I used to underwrite on a spreadsheet turn into real buildings that people live in or work in. And to me, that's incredibly fulfilling. So, when it comes to just like solving problems, you need to find a problem that you're really passionate about because you're going to be spending next 5, 10, 20 years solving this problem. And people are just sometimes, in my opinion, looking for a shortcut, looking for what's trending, what's VC backable, what's sexy. And a lot of times you're just doing it for some kind of other ends, not as just for the pursuit.
Interesting. I think that's great, great advice for anybody pursuing anything, entrepreneurship or otherwise. Love that. Thank you for that, Lillian. That was really good. So let's ask one more question of you, and we'll wrap up from there. But what do you do for fun? Are you enjoying the Big Apple? Where would you like to go travel? Tell me something interesting.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. I had my fun. I had my fun over the past 5 years when I was working, traveling as a digital nomad. Now, I mean, I work for fun,
I'm sure you do.
which
You
sounds
have
really
to, right?
lame. Yeah, I mean, which sounds really lame, but I was making this joke earlier where I said, now I meet a lot of people on LinkedIn, right? And I make this joke how, when we were kids, we weren't allowed to have internet friends, but all I have now is friends from LinkedIn.
That's
And
funny.
so, and sometimes I meet up with them in person and we talk about work, life, families, real estate, and all these things that really energize me. I really enjoy that. Outside of work, I used to foster cats. So
Oh, wow.
if I have a lot of money, when I have a lot of money, I want to have lots of cats. If that helps. And yeah, I like building things. I like interior design. I like trying out, traveling, trying different experiences and meeting new people. And I think just getting out of my comfort zone and putting myself in a scenario where I'm scared from time to time. I find that pretty fun, but also probably pretty abnormal.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, that's where people grow, right? Is outside their comfort
Yeah,
zone, but most people try to stay inside of it.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. Well, Lillian, this has been fantastic. Thanks again for joining us. And thanks everyone for joining us on Technologies Now, the Business Edge. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at Technologies Now AI and follow us on LinkedIn as well. And until next time, keep innovating and stay on the business edge. Thank you. Thanks again, Lillian. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David, for having me. It's been a pleasure.